Alright, hey everybody. You can see here we're boiling maple syrup. I figured a few people watch my channel make syrup, and I figure there's probably some of you that probably don't know much about it, so figured I'd show you guys our little setup we got here. So if you can see, we got the evaporator going already. Got all the steam going up here. So let's see, I'll probably make this a multi-part thing. I didn't get any video of us tapping because I ended up going to the farm machinery show in Kentucky, and by the time we got back it was good weather for this, so we just kind of had to get going. But I'll get some video of gathering here the next day or so. So we kind of out of sequence and how it should be, but you guys get the gist of it. So I guess I'll start with some of the stuff that we use for tapping. So over here, what I've got is an array of different drills that we used to use. I mean, I never use this one, but this is what my dad used to use. It's the old hand-style crank drill. We did used to use this one here. This big old heavy thing. It was cordless before they had cordless. So you actually carried around a car battery in a backpack, and this would plug into it, and then you'd be able to drill your holes for your taps. But after that we started using just cordless drills. Those are alright until the batteries get weak, and then it seems like you never have enough batteries to get all your taps in. So last year, 2 years ago, we bought this bad boy here. This is Takana. I don't know, it's Japanese, but it's it's a little gas-powered drill made for tapping, and I use it around the farm for other things, but it's a pretty handy little thing. A little two-stroke throttle. It's got a reverse on it right here. Oops. So that's what we use for tapping now. The bit is just a 7/16 wood bit that you drill into the tree. We tap just hard maples. You can tap soft maples, but you don't get the sugar content out of a soft maple that you would out of a hard maple. The ratio is 40 gallons of sap roughly to 1 gallon of syrup, and that'll vary year to year a little bit depending on the sugar content in the tree. So we go out and use that and drill a 7/16 hole into the tree. Depending on the size of the tree will dictate how many holes we put in it. We have some trees that only get 1 hole or 1 tap, and we have some bigger trees that will get 4 taps put into them. So just depends on the tree and the health and the age and stuff like that. So go out there, you punch a hole in the tree about 1.5 to 2 inches deep, and this right here is called a spile. It's what we it's the style that we use. See if I can get this to focus a little better. So what you do, this end here is what goes into the tree. So you knock that into the tree with a hammer, just hitting it up here, and then the sap will drip out of that end right there. And then if you can see that hook there, the hook is what we hang our buckets on. We use all metal buckets. There's all different forms you can use. Some guys use plastic buckets with a plastic line coming down to the ground. You can use like a plastic bag setup, but we just use the old school metal bucket. Seems to work pretty good. So the bucket and this actually holds the bucket to the tree, and then it'll slowly drip into the bucket. I don't happen to have a bucket here with me, but they're about 4 gallons roughly. I do have, this is one of the lids right here. Bad sun this morning, not used to it, but anyway, so that's a lid. It just clips over the top of the bucket, and that'll sit like that. If the tree was here, the lid would be there, bucket would be there, and then that tap would be like that. The lids keep leaves and debris and rainwater and stuff out of the sap, since you don't really want to have to boil any more water out of it than what's already there. But, so yeah, that's pretty much what we use for tapping. I'll explain the evaporator system here in a second. I gotta check this. This is about ready to pull off. I don't know if you guys will be able to see those drips going on there. Watch towards the end there. If you can see that webbing, how those drips are holding. See how it's kind of sticking to that like that? That means it's almost ready. We don't finish on the evaporator. We take it off and then finish it in another pan, which I'll show. So what I'm going to do now is just open this up a little bit. Start drawing some off. So that's just pure syrup. Well, almost ready syrup coming out of there. That's just a filter that we use. We try to filter it as much as possible. Makes for a better, clean product. Go over here. The bucket that my dad did last night. That right there is all syrup. That's almost finished. We'll finish that later today. There's about 4 gallons in there. So, yeah. All right. So let's go out here and I'll show you kind of how the process goes. It's kind of bright. So let me move here. Should be able to see that all right. I can't because of the sun, but that's our gathering tank there. It's in the back of my pickup. Holds 250 gallons of sap. So what we do is go to the trees. All our trees are roadside trees and yard trees, which there's just a lot of people just north of here that have them in their yard and along the road, and they allow us to tap, and we give them a percentage of finished syrup depending on how many taps they have. And so we go around with 5-gallon buckets. You can see here, there's actually one. Got some stuff in it, but that's actually sap right there. That's the liquid that comes out of the tree. So we go around with 5-gallon buckets and empty the buckets on the trees into this, and then carry it over here and dump it in the truck. So it is kind of labor intensive the way we do it. A lot of your bigger guys will have tubing and such and vacuum systems, but the way we're spread out, we don't do that many taps. That just wouldn't be conducive for us to do that. So yeah, that's the sap right there. Hope that shows up all right. It's basically just a clear liquid. It has a little bit of a sugary taste to it, but not very much. So basically all you're doing when you're boiling it down is just removing the water and condensing it. So after we go around and empty our buckets and get it into this tank here, then we pump it out. I got a little 1-inch gas pump that we use. These are the hoses here hooked to the pump. This here is another filter. This filters it before it goes into the next tank as it gets pumped out. There's a little bit left in there, if you can see. Pumped some of it out yesterday. Ended up getting 500 plus gallons yesterday, so that's quite a bit for what we normally do in one day. This here is the tank that we pump it to. So we stick that filter and hose up here in the top. This holds 210 gallons, and this is where it goes before the evaporator. Right here is the line coming out of the tank. You can see it's going back into the sugar shack there. It's all just gravity fed from here. So go back in here. Still got our sap coming off here, drawing off. Check this again. There's another method we use to check. We have a hydrometer over there we use for finished product, and sometimes if you don't feel like doing it this way, you can just use that. Basically all that's doing is measuring sugar content, but I'll get to that in a minute. Kind of getting sidetracked here. Anyway, here's the tube coming in from the outside from the tank. Comes into this right here, which is just this is a float which controls the height of the sap in the pan here. You don't want it too high because then it takes too long to get a good boil, but you also don't want it too low because if there's not enough liquid in the pan, you'll burn your pan, which is no good. So as the water evaporates out, the syrup or the sap will get lower in the pan, the float will go down, and then open up this valve here and let more cold sap come in. So this might be a little hard to see. I might have to do this again when it's not boiling, but if you can see, there's a copper pipe in there. That copper pipe is bringing the sap in, and it's taking it over here to this side of the pan. This pan is divided right here from side to side. So the sap, the cold sap, is coming in over there. And then there's a bunch of baffles in the bottom of these pans, which are called flues. This style pan is a raised flue, meaning that the heat has like pockets that allow the heat to come up into the bottom of the pan, and basically what you're doing is getting more surface area so that you have a better rate of boil. So that cold sap is coming in over here, and it kind of goes back and forth through these little baffles, and then it'll come around this side, and it's going to go back here, forth here, and then you see this valve here. This is where it's coming out of the back pan and into the front pan, which is when it gets here, it's getting more finished. This is just a flat bottom pan. So the same principle here with the float. Opens up. You can see right now, since I'm drawing off, there is some sap flowing into the front pan. Get it to keep the level again. This one's even more crucial to keep the level right. My dad has boiled this pan over before and then burnt the bottom of the pan, which then all the welds get stressed, and then you have to get it re-welded. So that wasn't fun. But anyway, so the sap's coming in here, and if you can see here, there's a bunch of dividers again. So the sap is getting forced this way, then this way, then this way, then back again, until it reaches over here to the side where we're taking it off. So by the time the sap gets over to this end of the pan, it's pretty much complete. You can finish on this pan, but it would be a lot more difficult just to control it, because it's kind of a fine line between cooked enough and not cooked enough. Check this again. See how that's getting pretty watery again? It's dripping pretty fast. So I think what we'll do is turn this off. But you can see there, that stuff, it's like a sugar sand, we call it. It's just a natural little bit of dirt and stuff that might be in sap. That's why we continuously filter it throughout the process to get that out, and it gives you a really smooth product. If you notice over here, there's another one of those valves. The reason for that is that same sugar sand that we just saw in that filter, that can build up in your pans. So what you do is you reverse the flow here. That's what this here is stopping the syrup from coming in here. But tomorrow when we start boiling again, we'll put this over on that side and move that pipe over to this side, and then this valve here will get closed, and this float will go to that side. So tomorrow we'll be drawing syrup off from this side, and it basically just keeps it moving so that sugar sand can't build up, because what it'll do is build up and then it gets stuck to the bottom of your pan, and at the end of the season it's quite difficult to get it cleared off. So yeah, so that is a basic boiling nutshell of our evaporator. It's pretty small. It's just a little 2x8, so it's 2 foot wide, 8 foot long. It's wood fired. You see this here is a little sight glass for the back pan to show your level. That's our mark where we want to keep it at. And if you can see it in there, it's kind of bouncing up and down a little bit as it bubbles. But yeah, so like I said, we just burned wood. Here's the firebox. It's extremely hot. This is our patent pending forced air draft. also known as a box fan. It's supposed to just be natural draft, but just doesn't burn that good with that. So you can get arches, which is what you call the frame that the pans sit on. You can get those with a forced draft air system on them, but we just never did when we bought this. We've had this evaporator for probably at least 10 years. My dad bought it. We bought it brand new. So yeah, that's that. So once we take the that syrup there, this is what we finish it on. This is just a little 2x2 pan. Propane. You just hook a propane tank to it, like a 5-pound or a 20-pound cylinder, like you would for your barbecue grill. It's got 3 burners on it there, and it's a lot easier to regulate the heat on it and control the temperature and get it cooked properly. See if I can find the hydrometer. This right here, this is the hydrometer I was telling you about. This right here is the actual hydrometer, and those red lines there, one is a hot syrup test and one's a cold syrup test. So you fill this up with syrup, and like that stuff we just took off, this would probably just be floating just a little bit. But when we're finishing it over there in the pan, we're constantly checking it, and once it's floating up to the red line, that means that you're done, which means your sugar content is adequate, at least for sale and where it needs to be. So we take it on there and we finish it on that. And when it's out of that, while it's still hot, we put it into this. This is our filter tank / bottling. This is the final thing. Let's see if I can open it. Oh, yeah. This top's a little tight. So what you got there is just a big tank, but this metal ring here comes out. And you put a cone filter, which is a wool filter. It's very fine filter that does the final straining on the syrup, and pour it in there, and then get our jugs, and we got a valve here on the bottom, and we use that and fill up all our different varieties of bottles that we use. Usually mostly just quart plastic, which look like that. And then we do glass also, this is from last year. It's a 7-ounce glass. You can see how clear that is. That's some of the first stuff that we did that year. The first pulls, or the first syrup you make in a year, is usually your lightest. It's your most desirable for sale per se. It's considered a light amber. And then as the season goes on, the syrup will get darker because of the trees pulling up more, I guess you'd say, different nutrients or